Okay, great. So I'm going to start by introducing my panelists. With me from my side, Sébastien Morteau, CEO and founder of iConnection. We have Timothy Bataille, business development for MENA and Turkey at Engager. And last but not least, Alexander Dosith, chief representative for MENA for Facelift. Can we quickly start by telling us what kind of tools you guys have and what do you offer the brands in like 1 minute, please?
Okay. So iConnection is providing digital products around social marketing. You know, we have a platform called Nuke Suite, which we are distributing into Middle East Africa. And we also work on the social listening with Synthesio, who is a world leader on the field. And we are also active in the mobile commerce and omnichannel field.
Okay, Timo?
Engager.com is a SaaS application. It's an all-in-one social media monitoring, analysis, and management tool, focusing specifically on those type of brands that are into a lot of customer service over social media.
Alex?
Facelift is a company from Germany. We provide an all-in-one software as a service solution for Facebook engagement, community service, ad management, and analytics. And well, we provide this mainly to enterprises and that really like to get the best out of Facebook.
Okay, let's start by defining some of the terms that we're going to be talking about across this session. Let's start with listening. Timo, can you tell us a little bit more? What does listening involve and what is it about?
For me, listening involves knowing what is being told about you on the whole social web. So basically, in a tool, this would be putting keyword queries, adding certain profiles, social profiles on all the platforms that you want to track, and see what is being talked about with regards to your brand anywhere on the web based on keywords that you define. So you're not only talking about monitoring what people are saying on your social profiles, but also what they are doing on other platforms, even when they just mention you without necessarily be talking directly to you. And then a good listening exercise is taking all this information and using it to go into direct engagement and communication with the people that are talking about you.
Thanks, Timo. Sébastien, can you talk to us a little bit about sentiment analysis? What does that involve? What does it really mean?
Yeah. And behind, of course, any social listening activities, the capacity for you to define, how is your reputation, to be able to measure yourself versus your competitors, by putting a kind of social reputation score. I mean, we see a lot of differences among countries, among industry, on this social reputation score, which is really, how many positive comments you have versus negative, and you really run the calculation on this is something impacting a lot companies. And today, if you look at sentiment analysis, there are different ways to do it. And we see a trend where more and more there are automated sentiment analysis tools that really cover all the key languages, such as Arabic, English, Hindi, especially in a market so diverse in terms of languages like MENA. It's quite good to use automated tool. There are also agencies that are specialized into the sentiment analysis work, and they will do it, but more with people, into the market where, the platform will really do it with a permanent crowdsourcing, of all the words and all the language, across, as Timo said, blogs, social networks, main media, across multiple channels.
Okay. I'm going to start by really trying to understand what is it that we're going to be talking about today in terms of what is engagement really? So some people say engagement is about likes. Some people say engagement is about how many tweets I get. If I get mentioned 1 million times a day, I must have some good engagement. What does that really mean? Let's start with you, Alex. And can you tell us, in your opinion, what do you think engagement really is?
Okay. Well, focusing a little bit more on Facebook for us, since we are 100% Facebook directed, engagement for us is the first step, actually the necessary evil to get the audience receptive and interacting with the communication that the brand is trying to implement, and eventually it's only the first step to create a sale afterwards.
Okay.
So it's the basis, and it's the hard work that is required. And I think it's just it's just engagement that is for social media channels or for websites or for any kind of digital channel. It's just replicating the everyday life, the way that you're interacting with people. And I think Facebook is doing that in a very, very efficient way to replicate how everyday life engagement is used on a digital channel.
So it's more or less a reflection of what we are expected to do in real life with real people if we had a shop or a store or any sort of regular interaction with people.
Not even that, you can also replicate a whole sales process in there, because when somebody is writing on your Facebook page, he's actually in the same way. Let's say Etisalat, somebody's going to the store at Etisalat, waiting in line. After half an hour, he's speaking to somebody, he's asking a question, and nobody's responding to him for 1 hour. That's typically not a very engaging way. And the same thing is happening on Facebook pages if nobody feels urged to respond in a fast way with the right information. And for that, listening is very important, but also responsiveness with the right person to respond to is very important.
Okay, Timo, your tool also handles customer service, or social CRM is what it's called.
Yeah.
Do you agree with the way engagement is defined? Do you think that there's other things that also need to be incorporated into the engagement process to make sure that the brand is engaging?
Yeah, I mean, it can be a first step onwards to a sale, but I think it's more of a constant process also after the sale. I mean, I think for me the most important element of engagement happens after the sale.
Okay.
To give this customer a good customer experience, keep on engaging with him, especially when maybe his experience is not that good, and trying to use that negative sentiment at that moment and turn it into a positive customer experience where basically you're talking one-on-one with a person, but this person has a network and you're actually reaching into this whole person's network that way. So what I see is many brands still, they say they are engaging on social media, but if you really look at what they are doing, they are still very much in the old mindset of brand building, this one-to-many type of communication. I launch this application and boom, I do it on my Facebook page. I launch this, I push, I publish, we publish posts. That can work on some levels, but if we see, at least with the clients that we are working with, the ones that are really being very successful is the ones that are taking it a step further and really go into one-to-one communication instead of this one-to-many type of communication. It's maybe less important for a brand that is selling whatever, let's say KitKat, because there is not much service related with KitKat. But especially in more service-oriented businesses, where you have what we would call the problem of the absence of the negative, which very briefly explain this. If you're having 10 phone calls a day today and they all go perfectly, you won't sit down at the end of the day and say, wow, I had a great telecommunications experience today. But if one call cuts or it doesn't work, the network is gone, hell breaks loose, and you're going to start tweeting about how bad the coverage of Etisalat is and I don't know what. If you're eating your chicken in the plane, you're not going to start tweeting that it's so nice to have chicken in the plane. But if your plane is 10 minutes delayed, you're going to start complaining a lot and hell breaks loose again. So
does that mean negative messages are usually more popular than positive messages? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, people tend to
complain a lot more.
Yeah, and specifically with this type of industries like telcos, transportation, hospitality, banks, they suffer a lot from this. Like their customers tend to very much share the negative stuff and not so much the positive stuff. So that's where it really becomes important to engage one-on-one with these negative experiences and by engaging, turn them into a positive experience.
Okay. Sebastian, your turn.
There is a nice example, about this famous country music player, that had his guitar broken by United Airlines on the. Basically, not only he got his guitar broken, but then he could not really get the type of response to his issue. And basically, he put a song on YouTube, and it generated 10 million views. So at the end, there is a risk, if you don't really listen and respond to your customer needs. And sometimes brands are clever about it. There is another example with McDonald's where people were complaining about the quality of the burgers. It's never like it looks on the advertising. And what they did is they created a video that was really showing how an advertising was shot, and with all the detail about the shooting, so people could understand the gap between the product they see on the picture and what they will eat on the restaurant. So, there are ways of positively taking, a complaint and really, driving back, to the user and to the community. I guess one of the, what is behind engagement, it's really about interaction, is what you will measure is the effect of what you do on how many people are responding to what you do, to the type of things you are bringing them. So it's really about finding the right context, the right moment, having the right processes, to respond on time and with the right answers to customers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
can I just begin to
that?
What you say is true. Like it's about what do consumers want and what has the internet enabled. It's going back to the basic, back to one-on-one real human relationships. And it's not a very complex thing. Like at some point, I feel it's even funny that we're having this conversation because indeed the rules on social media, they're not different from the rules in real life. In any interaction, in any environment, you expect a certain level of courtesy and helpfulness, and that is what engagement is about. And it's not some complex thing that is only to be understood by some whatever social initiates. Maybe some gurus will try to make you disbelieve because they earn their consulting fees on that, but it's very basic indeed. It's just providing a good customer experience across different platforms.
Okay, so
May I add something to that?
Yeah.
Yes.
The complexity is not in understanding it, but it's about managing it, because there are so many channels that people can communicate with you. So the technology is the way to manage these channels. If you have not only one fan page with 1,000 people where occasionally somebody drops a line and you have to respond to them, that's an easy task. If you have an overview of 55 fan pages across different regions and different languages, the complexity arises manifold. And this is where technology can help you to understand the sentiment, to listen to them properly, and also to help your team that is your own organization to manage this complexity of interaction.
Okay, so I have a brand, let's say brand X, and brand X has a lot of negative sentiment on social media, let's say, or even on blogs or whatever. The sentiment score is pretty high on this brand, but also there's a majority of it that's also neutral. What do I do to maximize this engagement? How do I turn this into an engaging brand, a brand that I can stand up and say, look, I've leveraged my engagement, my brands are engaging with, my consumers are engaging with me, and people believe that they relate to me on an emotional level and understand that this brand is the best thing ever. What are the steps required for me to change the perception of any brand that is currently online into a positive experience for my consumers? Any takers?
If I may?
Please, go ahead.
Just go to any shop in the, let's say, shoe district in the Emirates Mall.
Okay.
You have a broken shoe, there will be a lady or a man that will take that broken shoe and say, wow, this product quality is not acceptable, sorry for this, why don't you take this extra thing, and maybe you get another small gift for that, sorry, we apologize.
But if you have 1 million fans on your page,
Yes.
How do you do that with the 1 million people?
Well, you do exactly the same, but you need to be able to duplicate and make this communication more efficient, but still remain in a one-to-one dialogue.
Okay.
It's also linked to what type of data you are able to gather about your social fans. On working on the cross-network view. On really being able to get the capacity to build clusters, segments. So that you can engage in targeted communication and notification with users will also help. So if you can really address a particular segment of non-happy, social fans, or a segment of, people that could be potentially key influencers, there are ways where you can really move the needle across, a very large crowd. And it's also linked about, putting in place the right processes internally within your organization, between the marketing department, between the PR department, between the customer service, so that you put a certain level of overall social compliancy with strict rules and processes, behind, because then it's something that needs to reflect, on an ongoing basis, and of course, time after time, you will be able to measure your improvement and also to benchmark you versus your competitors.
So,
may I add something
yes.
to that? I think what is also very important is to keep track on who is that person that is confronting you with criticism. If you have the CRM tool and the database, and this is where I think this region has a lot to improve, is getting more data about who is actually communicating to me on these channels. And you can prioritize, for example, if you say there's 1 million complaints, you should talk to those that are more influential on your page. So you can filter according to their contribution, if it's positive, or on an ongoing way, negative. And also you can...
So if someone is always positive about the brand and suddenly complains, they're probably going to get ignored? Is that what it means? If they don't have a lot of followers, let's say?
Definitely they should not be getting ignored.
But they will have a lower priority.
You always have to prioritize, of course. I mean, if there is a person going to that shoe store again and is screaming louder than you and is more harassing you or your brand or your shoe store, then you will try to make him calm, not shut up, calm first.
Calm
and
him
then
down, don't
you
shut him
take
up.
care of the guys that are less, I would say, ruly to scream.
Okay, Timo, and your tools measure sentiment analysis. Your tools also support social CRM, so they also help people create, or help the brands create profiles for every client that they have. Does that mean that there's a history of their complaints that's always there?
Yeah, and I think that's really important. Like the context in this whole customer service thing is very important, because today customers, they go via different channels when they have complaints. If you take the example of a telco operator, they will be tweeting and calling the call center and doing this and doing that, all at the same time. So if you well integrate all these things in your organization, wherever they go, they will get the same service, and the operator they're talking to, he or she will know the case. So if this telco is using a tool like ours or another one and integrates this with their CRM, automatically information gets exchanged, and the person who's tweeting, he gets a response, but when he calls the call center, this agent also knows about the tweets. He sees the case in front of him. So it's what do customers expect when they have a problem? They don't expect sympathy of people, they expect solving problems. So you need to, one, enable your social media team to solve problems, and this is often ignored by brands because they outsource it to some of these companies that provide community management. They have like a whole battery of underpaid employees who are constantly doing stuff on social media, but they don't have any real empowerment of really representing the brand and the reputation of the brand. So it's the case of having a very nice customer service representative who smiles very nicely but cannot help you. Are you satisfied? No. You want somebody who can solve your problem and who knows what your problem is, even if you've been talking to other people before. And that's what you need to reach by integrating all these processes in one funnel.
Okay, so
just a comment. I mean, beyond user engagement, it's also an opportunity for the brands to be able to gather more data and more insight about their customers. So then you can really move into the capacity to, do, maybe more one-on-one communication with them. And it's something that the more people engage with your brand, and the more you are relevant, according to some specific moment, being, external events where you want to participate to a global conversation with, a positive approach toward, a global conversation, or, if you really have like product launches or events you want to promote. I mean, all these are occasions to gather more insight about your fans, and even, measure what are the right networks for the right type of engagement. I mean, as a brand, you will engage differently on Instagram than you will engage on Twitter, on Facebook, on Pinterest, on Google+. So it's really important to look at what are the right channels. You take, for example, the region is, today we have, a very large percentage of the Twitter conversation which are in Arabic in the region. Twitter has been widely adopted, where on Facebook, you see that, it's only in few markets where Arabic is the dominant language. So it's, at the end, you need to really optimize the channel on the network according to your objectives.
Okay, so one more question about, sorry.
Yeah, regarding the sentiment,
really
and how to deal with it, because it can seem like a lot of work, like what you're saying, you have so much, but it's actually very manageable for most brands, because most brands don't have millions and millions of negative mentions every day. So when you really boil down things, it's not that much of a workload. Usually it can be managed with 1 or 2 people who are dealing with this. And that it really works we see this constantly with customers. Like one example is Thomas Cook, for example, the travel organization. When they started...
What country is that?
In the UK.
UK.
Like the day they started listening and like finding out what is going on, they discovered that 22% of what was being said about them on the web was negative, which is not good.
What's a good number?
It depends on your sector, I guess, but 22% is a lot. I mean, usually we see a lot of clients who are between 5 to 10% negative.
Okay.
I mean, usually anyhow, like 70, 80% is neutral of what you get. So they started with 22% negative. After just 3 months, this was reduced to 2% negative sentiment just by engaging with those people and by turning the sentiment. So in 3 months, from 22% to 2% negative sentiment, and they have millions of mentions a month.
So even turning your negative sentiments into neutral ones is an achievement.
Yeah.
You don't have to really turn them all into positive ones.
Yeah.
Okay. One more question about the tools before we actually go into the kinds of content or the best practices in the engagement. So we've spoken about the best practices in the kitchen internally of what you need to do to make sure that you're ready to engage with your consumers. From that aspect, Alex, what kind of games, apps, services do you provide for brands on Facebook that would help them do such things?
Well, I think it's good that you addressed this because we're talking about engagement.
Yes.
And there is an engagement on the level of community management. I think that can significantly improve the reputation of the company. But if you talk about engagement, for example, on Facebook, engagement will lead to more audience. And actually, everybody started to go to Facebook because it gives you free audience. And everybody's complaining about how free audience has been reduced with algorithms and all this. Eventually, the way to solve that is to work with engaging applications. Now then, these brands are talking to developers that very fast develop, let's say, a voting or something like this. And their voting quizzes, tests, those are very common. Everybody says, oh, we don't want to use it because everybody's doing it, but they're working the best because they're simply learned very easily to follow and with less involvement to be executed, participation and involvement.
Okay.
Now, the important thing is that an application, a Facebook application, that is, first of all, not including a mobile channel is losing 50% of the engagement because people can simply,
is from mobile.
because 50% of the access, or wide more than 50% depending on the industry, 50% of the people are accessing Facebook through the mobile native applications. So if it's not working there, well, you have a problem because you have already created your engaging application only for this. Then an application should also include the viral mechanisms, but what we have been seeing is that everybody was experimenting with custom apps, and all of a sudden it happens that they have very easy to participate mechanisms, but they don't include the more complex viral mechanisms that are part of the applications that trigger the engagement, making use of a voting, inviting other peoples from your friend base to also participate, getting an incentive for being a brand ambassador in a very small activation, and seeing who else from your friends has been participating, creating more likes, doing more shares, creating more likes with fan gates. So it's quite complex mechanisms that cannot easily be executed with custom apps, not at a in an efficient way.
So you can't launch a quiz every week if you're custom building each one.
Exactly, and the cost would be too high.
But what are the ones that actually work? So you mentioned voting apps, and you mentioned that not just any voting app, you have to actually be able to share it with your friends, the gamification aspect of it, the viral aspect of it.
Yeah.
What other things are also popular amongst people?
For example, I mean, they are like, anything that really, is based on user-generated content. I mean, you have some Instagram, photo quiz where you can upload pictures or you can do selfie. I mean, this has been used by some major football clubs, that have been doing it across the world to really get engaged, with their fans across, the entire geographies. I mean, we see a lot of participation. And I guess, one of the point covered, is clearly today, as a brand, you feel, oh, yeah, I need to do a bespoke application. It will cost me a lot. My agency will charge me a lot. Today, what you have is you really have platforms that have all these built-in mechanics that also cover, the mobile dimension of it because it's essential, and where you can really look at, depending on the targeted audience, depending on the product you want to market, what is the right approach. So maybe, for a specific campaign, a memo contest would be more efficient. Maybe in some cases it would be a sweepstakes, it will be a video voting, it will be something that is related to some branded content you create. So, it's really important to pick and choose. And the beauty now is that you have tools that take the entire complexity of it. So for you as a brand, as an advertiser, you just need to focus on your artwork, on your creative, and of course on the overall content of the game behind. But the entire mechanic and the entire deployment is covered by platform.
So it starts with my objective. Is that what it is? So if I want awareness, I have to choose specific kinds of tools versus if I want to build the brand, I choose others. Can we get some examples on this? I mean, the important thing is to get these best practices out there so that people can understand how easy is it for me to maximize this engagement by choosing the right tool or game or app or...
To be honest, I have to say it's not about the application itself. It's about the frequency.
The frequency.
The frequency.
So every week I have to launch a new game or every month?
Yes, you can do it every day because you have the targeting options in Facebook to target the promotion for the individual apps to particular segments. I was once speaking to a global brand, second biggest global brand ever. They didn't know that you could do 20 different Facebook applications installed on your Facebook page. They said, we have only 7 slots and we cannot do an extra one. I said, wow, you're the second biggest brand Facebook page in the world. I don't want to have a tab image. Tab images are gone, by the way.
Nobody uses tab images.
No tab images.
How much traffic goes onto apps and games from tab images?
3%.
3%. Where does the majority of the traffic come from then?
The majority of the traffic comes from postings
that
have overcome already the restrictive algorithms, and of course Facebook advertising.
So the postings, let's take this one step at a time. The postings that break the algorithm barrier, what kind of posts are those that are not paid, let's say?
I would say, first of all, the important thing is that they need the reach. So that means if you have a very low engagement, you obviously have to re-engage the people on the page. That means you will have to spend, but it's much less expensive to spend on inactive Facebook fans than on acquiring new ones.
Okay.
Then you start with promoting your first application. It will gain more audience.
Okay.
Then you can already start paying less, and you have another application going on because you have more audience.
Okay.
You simultaneously post with the right call to action, leading, involving also engagement from mobile applications. The audience will grow and grow and grow. Now the challenge for the brands is they still very much stuck in the process of planning an application for 1 month, having it executed, outsourced to usually Lebanon and then India and then Bolivia or somewhere, and then quality assurance 2 months later, and they launch one application every 3 months maybe, and typically they are burning money. This is what brands are doing with that process. Because they are creating a peak in engagement, the peak totally wears off, and they say to their agencies, guys, what have you done? It's the same scenario than before. And a brand manager is dissatisfied with that status.
So frequency and quantity is, or is that what I'm trying to understand? Frequency and quantity will beat quality if you're doing it so rarely. So if you're producing quality...
Do you mean quality in regard to
application? So this 3-month process...
No, it's the same quality, but one is custom app development, and they have to reinvent the wheel all the time, and the other one is...
There's always this perception that if I buy a template, I really can't skin it properly. Yeah. We're not talking about the technology behind it.
Yeah, that's right.
But so
that is a very big misconception.
Okay.
You can have responsive design for a website version, for a mobile version, and for the tab.
So they should try these custom-made tools first, or actually the pre-available tools, before they custom build.
They're doing it, but still also they're looking into, I would say, always the cheapest solution, where this is obviously not offered because nobody can develop something that is the cheapest and still the best.
Okay, so let's talk about Facebook walls, Twitter walls, the standard content that brands post. What are the things that I shouldn't post as a brand? Or let's say on Facebook or on Twitter. Let anybody pick a platform and give me an example.
Simply, in general, things that are not authentic, things that are not tied to your brand in some way or to the niche that you are playing in,
Okay.
you shouldn't post. I mean, if every brand is going to start posting cat pictures because those are popular, it's not going to work for them. It's not engagement again. It's just you posting something. And people, even if it gets a lot of likes and whatever, you need to know what you are measuring. Is somebody liking something on your page? Is that really engagement? Is somebody tweeting something or retweeting something? Is that an engagement? It's an engagement with the method that you are using to try and create brand engagement. But is it truly engagement with your brand? It's not because I retweet something of a brand or because I watch a video or participate in a game for 3 minutes because I'm bored on the bus and I want to play a game. And this happens to be what pops up on my Facebook wall. It doesn't mean that I'm engaged with the brand. 2 minutes later, I have forgotten about the brand. What you need to do is start a conversation. A conversation, this I won't forget. If I have a really, again, this more human interaction rather than being just killing my time with something, that's where you start to create real brand engagement. And this involves emotion, because emotion is in the end what is going to drive sales, what is going to drive me to share with other people, to advocate for this brand, because I really start seeing this brand as a player that is better than my expectation in its category. So that's where the engagement with the brand really starts. There is a difference for me between engagement with Facebook apps and with games and whatever, or real engagement with the brand. It's a different layer of things. And you need to take care, I think, to not be measuring the wrong thing, because you can have a lot of engagement on your page, but it doesn't turn into brand engagement, and then you're doing the wrong thing.
And sometimes, I mean, we should never forget that, getting a conversation start with also entertaining people. So, when you publish on social networks, when you have always an entertaining dimension, something that is twisted or that is humoristic, this is something that will trigger engagement. And even sometimes, you can even stand for a cause, or really have a special positioning. You take Dove, which had really an approach to, for normal women, against, the photoshopped girl we see in magazine. Again, this is something that is helping for people to react and to belong to the brand, and sometimes it's not also only about how you connect to the brand, but how you really connect through the brand, through an experience that is led by them, and where they will make sure that, through them, you can connect and you can meet and really.
So understand your audience, get something that's insightful and relates to them, and communicate on that level.
Yes.
It's about relevance, yes.
It's all about relevance.
Apart from all the methods, I think it's about authenticity. It's about timing, and that's why you need to listen, because you should align yourself and when you are engaging with when your audience is active.
And tools will let you know what time.
And tools will let you know what time of the day your community is active, etc. So what did I say? Authenticity. Yeah.
I mean, maybe just one dimension also is, we should never forget mobile, because mobile today is really driving, most of the social interaction that people have today. And on one dimension, which is also essential, is localization, geo-based, way of engaging with users. And we see also, on the advertising front, we see also a big shift toward hyper-local advertising, really be relevant with custom ads, that are linked to your location, with the capacity to identify a specific location, a specific shop, or dynamically, serve you something that is close to your surroundings. So it's also something that we should not forget. And just one comment, we see a major shift happening on the market. Take a company like Procter & Gamble. I mean, they spent last year almost $10 billion on advertising, and we see that not only they are globally, and also for $85 billion sales. Not only we see that they are reducing their advertising budget. Why? Because they are really optimizing their digital mix, between mobile, between digital, between social, while at the same time getting better efficiency and better results. And they really look at, there is the non-working marketing or the non-working advertising, which is more the traditional way of advertising, versus the working one, and the one that you can really measure. And I guess that's also the shift we see in the region is, the time where, advertising was only print on TV is gone, and especially today in the region, to engage with an audience, everything should be done online. So.
Well, unfortunately, in one of the panels that I was moderating yesterday, I heard that 5% of the budgets in this region go to digital Let's hope they kind of increase.
It's the same. You look at today, I mean, in the US, it's only 4% of the overall advertising budget are on mobile, where mobile is 20% of the time spent, as a media, where print is only 5%, but they get 15% of the advertising budget. So we really see, there will be a big shift, happening on even, I would say that the web to mobile dimension is blurred. When you look at, a lot of social commerce sites, that are driving even now more audience or more transaction on mobile than on web, it's really happening now with the smartphone penetration we have in the regions.
Okay. I'm going to switch and get some questions from the audience. Are you guys convinced? Do you have any questions? We have one gentleman over there.
I do apologize if I missed this. I'm Nikolai. I'm from 88 Miles Per Hour, a seed fund focusing primarily on African startups. Facebook recently changed their algorithm for how Facebook pages infiltrate and basically how brands can infiltrate people's personal pages. Can you talk a bit about how you see that affecting how brands can engage with consumers and how...
So how has the Facebook algorithm change? How is it affecting the way brands are marketing their content?
Yeah.
Okay. Any takers?
It's affecting, just quickly, it's affecting Facebook profitability. They work for shareholders for them. So clearly, it's forcing to get more paid media, in Facebook. However, it also requires more discipline, on the way you will plan the campaign, on the way you will really do the yield management on the real-time bidding platform, to really capture the audience you want at the right time.
And it's not just Facebook. It's YouTube's doing the same, Twitter's doing the same. They're all forcing brands to pay more if you want to get more share of voice. Any other questions? The lady right in front of the gentleman who asked the question.
What are the ways or tools to build an audience while you're starting up something or a brand is starting up its social media?
So in a limited budget can you be more specific?
Yeah, let's say limited to a medium budget, not big brands.
So you don't have a page, you want to build one now?
Yes, let's say. Or you have a page and you want to increase it.
Okay. Alex, do you want to take that?
Okay,
Since
I will
it's
take
Facebook.
that. Eventually keep in mind, whatever you do, everybody can do Facebook advertising. And this is essential to drive people to like your Facebook page. So conversion is always better on a Facebook application that makes use of a fan gate. A fan gate is used to display an incentive to do so. So eventually you want to have your budget, no matter if it's small or big budget, spent in the most efficient way. On the one hand, you have to control your advertising, and you don't go for the way of, I have one banner and one text, and you display it for $10 every day to random people in a very untargeted demographics. No, you go into very high targeting with different kinds of campaigns. Maybe you run hundreds of campaigns simultaneously. You have to eliminate the ones that are not efficiently communicating with a Facebook application that is converting a view into a like. Eventually, it's about landing page optimization and banner design, just in the ecosystem of Facebook. It's simply exactly the same thing, and we talk, internally we talk actually not about Facebook apps anymore, but about social landing pages that can also be used on various channels, and even these landing pages can be used on micro pages as well as mobile websites.
What are the requirements for a landing page? Like what would be a really bad landing page or a bad landing page?
A bad landing page is a landing page that communicates something differently than the banner you have been clicking or the message that brought you there. If the call to, let's say the call to action is buy a nice dress at, let's say, Namshi, and there is a nice dress on there. You click on that, and the landing page says, like our page to get this suit for this man. It doesn't work. Okay. They have to align, and eventually it's important to look at the click-through rates of your banner campaigns, optimize them. It's about iteratively improving the conversions from a click to a like, and then you can go and, have a more efficient allocation of your budget.
Okay. Questions? Go on.
Maybe just a comment also is, I guess it's not only just one network, you need to look at how you do it cross-network. So if you really want to build an audience, you need to look at how you can do. You can use curated platform to really curate content and get engagement. How you use a blog, to start producing content. So it's something that needs to be looked holistically across all the network on all the platforms.
Question.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I think what works.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah. I saw a YouTube clip about 2-3 months ago that went viral itself, and what it was involved with was legitimate paid PayPal advertising being diluted away from your own market audience, because if one person in China likes it, then that opens up to their peer group, and then suddenly everyone's liking it, and you're paying for advertising that's useless to you. I don't know if you've seen the same clip. It went viral itself, but the point is...
It was a targeted YouTube ad for a specific region?
No, Facebook, sorry.
Facebook ad?
Yeah.
For a specific region that accidentally got picked up by another market?
It's basically, you pay for Facebook advertising, people like it, and if it's not your core customer, there's a danger of it being diluted as more and more and more people, and there's less chance of you hitting your core customers, because you might have 5,000 likes, but only 200 of them are actually a potential customer, and 4,800,
so
you've paid for that, but it's irrelevant to you because...
Understood. So the question is, how do you deal with spillover, I guess, and how do you contain that spillover instead of collecting all the fans from people who are people that you don't know or you don't want?
May I?
Yes.
Okay. Well, what I would not understand is that you can mistarget Facebook advertising. What will be spilling over is the organic distribution of the same content. If you want to avoid that, don't go on Facebook. Just go somewhere else, because it's always a good thing that the message is brought to other people, and you're not paying for the organic growth of your fan page, people liking particular messages, but if you have Facebook advertising, you get targeted to exactly the demographics that you want. And there's no way that somebody else is clicking that advertising, because somebody else of your own demographic, if you look at your own advertising, at your own Facebook account, you will only see advertising that is made for you. And you cannot send a link from advertising from an ad to somebody else. Simply not.
I understand that was in theory. I wish I had the link or a bit more, but this was quite, I can't remember, I don't know who it was by, I can't remember, but they were contradicting basically what you were saying, that paid for Facebook advertising does have a danger of spreading virally beyond the targets that you're specifically paying for.
May I ask you guys to continue this?
Yes.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Clearly, I just want to make sure nobody else has a question before we wrap up. Excellent. So, you have 30 seconds.
Okay,
quickly.
That's enough. Just back to the previous question, I think what always works very well is putting your own customers on the spotlight if you want to grow a page. I was talking this week with a guy of Leo Burnett who manages McDonald's for the region, and he told me the McDonald's Instagram account of McDonald's Arabia is one of the largest globally. I think it's like top 2 or 3 globally for McDonald's. And the way he's been doing it is really by putting the customer in the spotlight. Basically what they do is, if you photograph yourself next to a McDonald's sign or in a McDonald's venue or whatever, they will repost your thing. And people like this so much that their account grew by 10,000s in no time.
From a very simple concept of
very simple,
crowdsourcing.
no complex stuff, just feeling what makes people tick.
Okay. So to sum this up, before you go and try to build your engagement, you need to fix your tools in-house. I think that's something we've all agreed upon, whether it's with listening, whether it's with sentiment analysis, and you use those two to figure out and identify where your audience is, so that then you can go and approach them in that way. If you have inactive Facebook users, you need to activate them first before you go and approach new audience. And by that, we also mean, of course, any kind of content that is related to your audience. You need to get some insight about what your audience is before you put the content out. What else did we say? Prioritize your budgets is very important. You need to know where you're spending what. The kinds of apps that are engaging to users can be anything. It could be voting, as simple as that. User-generated content, another example that Timo gave right now. The important thing is that you're authentic, you're honest, and you're providing content that is relevant for your brand. When it comes to community management, always make sure you fix the problems, look at the negatives, turn them into neutrals, if not positives. And I guess the content is always going to be relevant to who you're talking to. I'd like to thank my panelists, Sebastien, Timo, and Alex. Thank you, guys. Anyone has questions for them, you can meet them downstairs on the stage.
Thank you, Fawzi.